Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked, and on this occasion I'm joined by James Kearney. How's it going, James?
I'm very well, thanks. How you getting on?
Yes, good. We have tried. We were kind of this video or podcast, however you're listening to it, was planned for earlier in the week, but a variety of reasons prevented us from doing so. So we're now here on Thursday afternoon doing it rather than in evening, just because I am got a event on. A Nutmeg/Herald event on in Glasgow this evening, so we're having to record at the earlier time of 3 minutes past 2. But we're here to talk about Hearts and the transfer window. The transfer window I believe a week tomorrow, which will be the start of the Euros essentially, and then it'll run through until I believe it closes on the 30th of August, if Transfermarkt is correct with those dates. So that's essentially 11 weeks of business to be done. So Hearts are in a position where we have a very settled squad. Not many players have left. There's a lot of players that have contracted in the season. So what James and I are going to do is kind of run position to position. So goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards, and just assess the squad. We probably won't talk about too much in detail about players who could potentially come in. I'm going to leave that probably until next week. Tom Irving is looking at doing a piece and looking at the different positions and players who could potentially be of interest to Hearts. So discuss that later on in the week. So before we jump right into looking at the goalkeepers, I will, of course, read a message from our sponsors, because there is exciting news from our sponsor MPH Group. They're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas themed launch weekend from June 14th to 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games with instant win prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter the draw for bigger prizes. Land on zero and get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay at Trump Tower in Vegas with a helicopter tour. Don't miss out. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot, and we'll see you there. Well, we won't, because we won't be there, but the message, everyone will see you there. Yes, it's a place to be. And it reminds me of the last time I played roulette, which was in Reno last year. It was my partner that played, and roulette, and I think put a decent amount of money on black or red. And what did it land on? Of course, it landed on a 0, but it was a 0-0 roulette game, which I have issues with, and a load of nonsense. But we'll leave that there. Let's talk about Hearts and the transfer window, starting with goalkeepers. This won't take too long, because essentially Hearts do not need a goalkeeper for next season.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's already arguably too many goalkeepers, and that you've got Craig Gordon and Zander Clark, who are, would be first choice goalkeepers at basically any other team in the league. They're both going to be battling for the gloves. They both feel that they probably should be number one.
Yeah, they're probably the best, if not the best, one of the best 1-2s in Scottish football.
I think there's probably an argument. There's probably a decent argument to be made that might be the best.
Yeah.
Come to think of it. But yeah, no, I think obviously Hearts are very incredibly well stocked when it comes to first team goalkeepers who are actually going to play. Obviously we've seen Michael McGovern's left as well this summer, and it looks as though Ryan Fulton's going to be coming in from Accies, which again just seems to make sense. And he's young for a goalkeeper. He's 25, I think, off the top of my head.
I can't remember the story. So he's essentially going to come in for Michael McGovern and act as a number 3, which obviously allows, as we've seen, Harry Stone to go on loan to Ayr United and make up. No, Fulton's 28, so he's a bit older. But
he's
got experience. He's played in the Premiership, played in the Championship, and he shouldn't be called on. It would take 2 injuries or injury suspension for him to be called on. So like that, his presence just allows Liam McFarlane to continue playing games and Harry Stone to continue playing games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think particularly with those players at the stage of their careers are and in the position that they play, you'd think that getting minutes under the belt, going out and getting game time is better than training with the first team every day, but then not actually getting the chance to play on a Saturday when it comes around. So I think as well, looking at Ayr United's kind of early transfer business as well, they seem to be recruiting quite well so far. So it'll be interesting to see how they got on. And the Championship, a step up from where he was last season, not at Queen of the South, but by all accounts, it's one that he's ready for as well. And he has got a little bit of experience of playing the Championship before with Partick Thistle. So yeah, no, I think that's a move that makes sense for everyone. And again, with McFarlane as well playing with the B team again, it makes more sense to me than playing, not even being sitting on the bench each Saturday. So it's one of those. It's obviously an area where there wasn't going to be much movement, and it looks as if you'd imagine that's it probably sewn up for the summer at this stage.
We'll move on to the defence, and the big priority is, which comes as no surprise to anyone, is right back. We've seen it at the end of the last season that neither Dexter Limbikisa on loan from Wolves or Nathaniel Atkinson really held down the position and kind of showed that they were deserving of holding down the position. Just that there was a lot of inconsistency. I mean, Nathaniel Atkinson apologised after these performances against Celtic on social media. I thought that certainly raised my eyebrows. I was on holiday at the time, but it was the fact that he'd only come on as a second half substitute. And then Limbikisa, young guy, clearly issues, clearly improvements to be made defensively. But right back is certainly an area where I think the club will prioritise whether maybe not just one, but potentially two signings, depending on elsewhere and the depth that the team have.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it might sound a bit strange to say because obviously Limbikisa's back at Wolves and Atkinson's still at Hearts, but I honestly think Limbikisa's maybe got a better chance of being at Hearts next season than Atkinson, based on the way that Atkinson finished the season, and it's just, it's clearly an area where the Hearts need bodies in. It's abundantly clear. Finished the season with Stephen Kingsley playing there in the last day of the season.
I think that said a lot, yeah.
Which I think does say quite a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised though if Naismith just trying to. I know we're not really talking about who might come in, but I wouldn't be surprised if he follows a similar sort of pattern in that you get one who's quite an attacking fullback, one who's maybe more of a wing back, say like something like Limbikisa mold, and then someone who's more of a natural right back who plays in a back four, who's maybe a bit more defensive for games in Europe or against the Old Firm and things like that. So I'd imagine it probably plays those similar kind of profile, but I'd be surprised if there's not at least two right backs. I'd imagine two right backs to be coming into the squad, just because looking at the team, that's the serious point of the team, and like football's what's called like a weak link sport, where basically because it's a team sport and because goals are rare, there's an argument to be made basically that teams are only really as good as their worst player. If you've got one weak link in the team, that's going to cost you, and you can have 10 of the best players in the world, but if you've got someone who's absolutely rubbish playing, they're going to cost you, and you're going to lose games of football. That's different to something like, say, basketball, where if you've got one good player, that can be enough. You can have like four average guys and one great player, and as long as the great guy just keeps getting the ball and scoring baskets, then you're still going to win games. It's a strong link sport.
I'm going to disagree slightly. If Hearts had 10 of the best players in the world and a one weak link, I'm going to still say that Hearts are going to win the league. But I know what you mean in terms of just in relation to the league. I'll come in, bring in a couple of comments. Stephen Anthony Jones says, "Get Straining." I'm not sold on that as a replacement for Atkinson. I mean, I think there's going to be elements of replacing like for like. I'd probably put Strain more in the mould of potentially kind of Limbikisa as a right wing back. But these are two guys who have kind of shared the right back position at Australia, and I think maybe Atkinson may have been ahead of Strain at times for Australia. So I don't see from not just the data, but from what I've seen of games, especially the past season, that Strain would be too much of an upgrade. We've got Graham here says, hi, I hope you guys all well. If you get a right back, another centre back, another centre defence midfielder, and another striker, I think we'll be looking good as long as we keep Shankland. We'll obviously come to different positions there, but Graham mentions centre back. I was writing this down for a piece that's going to go out on the site over the weekend or next week. Is when you kind of jot it down, you've got Frankie Kent, Craig Halkett, Cairo, Stephen Kingsley, and returning Lewis Nielsen. I think you're pretty set for the at centre back, but I would say it kind of hinges on a couple of things going really well in pre-season.
Well, Joe, there's another player in there that you've forgotten who probably falls into that category of one of these players who it kind of depends on their future, which is Toby Sibbick as well. Obviously, there's another player who can play centre half, another player who could well move on this summer, might well stick around. You know, it's clear he's kind of approaching a crossroads in his Hearts career, and it's not quite clear how what's going to happen next. Yeah, like you say as well, something like Lewis Nielsen could well end up finding himself getting loaned out again. It'll depend how he gets on in pre-season. And then the other thing, of course, is that the transfer window's open. The likes of Kingsley, Kent, Rolls might attract attention, might attract bids. So there are sort of moving parts. But I would think that on paper just now, it's a really strong area of the team. I think it's an area where, if provided there were no ins or outs, I don't think there really would need much strengthening there, particularly if Halkett coming back from injury as well. But I think that where Civic to be moved on, or say Nielsen was loaned out, or someone else gets sold, maybe a bid comes in, it's too good to turn down. At that point, I think it probably would need strengthening. But I think right now you look at it, and whether Hearts are playing a back four or back three, they're well stocked, and there's a good variety of options in there as well. So I wouldn't say that's a particular priority. I wouldn't have thought, unless things change.
Yeah. So I think that's what I would call a reactionary position. Like we'll come on to talk about the next position and striker, where I think it will kind of rely or require something happening between now and the end of the transfer window for Hearts to be pushed into having to recruit at centre back, i.e. Nielsen maybe not being ready to make that step up this season, or certainly the first half of the season, or an injury, or like you said, someone being interested in one of the players. Like you look at Frankie Kent and the fact how well he's done, his availability, just his ability to over the last 7 seasons played averaged over 40 games a season. Clubs like that because they can rely on him, and he's obviously a good defender. But we'll move to left back again. James Penrice is expected to come in this window. So then you think of right, set at left back, but the caveat that Alex Cochrane is a sellable asset, and this is probably the last chance you get to make money on him this window. So I would see that as a position that Hearts might need to. Wouldn't be surprised and have to react and bring in. At the same time, if Cochrane departed, it wouldn't be I don't think it would be as pressing as for example, if Shankland left, just because you've got Penrice, and then you've got Kingsley and Rowles who can play left back, and then there's high hopes for Ethan Drysdale, who has trained or is trained with the first team at times over the last few months as well. But Cochrane would be a big miss.
No, it would be, and you're right. I mean, this is obviously the last chance. The Hearts have got to make a bit of money, unless, of course, he signs an extension, in which case, never mind. But I mean, it would be no surprise if I'd be surprised, to be honest, if English clubs weren't kind of looking at him, tracking him, sniffing about him, just because he's been trained at Brighton's Academy. That helps in terms of squad registration rules. He's had a good couple of seasons at Hearts, and like you say, it's an opportune time for him, for clubs to come in for him. And in terms of who you've then got left, I mean, I think that even if Cochrane does go, even though James Penrice is coming in, and even though you've mentioned the likes of Rose and Kingsley, I still think another left back's probably needed, like an out-and-out left back. Because I mean, we spoke about this the other day. In fact, the fact that Kingsley's a centre half these days, and yes, he can play left back, and yes, Rose can play left back, but you might then end up having to move them out to left back, and then you're weakening the team in central defence in order to do so. So I wrote about this back in January. I said I think that the Hearts still need another left back, just because if, for instance, Cochrane needs a rest, or and then say Kingsley gets injured, all of a sudden there's very few options. All of a sudden it's like, okay, Kai Rolls, you're playing there, and even if we want to play with a back three with wing backs, sorry Kai, you're the best option. We've got a left wing back. You're going to have to go in there. So I think that even though Penrice is coming in, if Cochrane were to go, I think there'd probably suddenly be somebody else. But if Cochrane does stay, I think that's an area where Hearts will probably fine. But again, it's that way. Like you said, there are players that can play different roles, but it's like, think of like the overall number of defenders, and if it's like 7, like that's just not enough, even if they can play in different positions.
I think that would obviously have a knock-on effect if they were like, right, don't replace Cochrane and just rely on what the club already have. I think that would mean having to bring in another centre back because you're relying on Rowles and Kingsley to play those positions. Now, I think midfield is a really interesting one. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on it, because if you look at it going into next season, Hearts have under contract Benny Beningame, Macaulay Tate, Aidan Denham, Cammy Devlin, Cal Newhoff, George Grant, Jan Danda, Blair Spittle, and Finlay Pollock. When you put it down on paper, that's a lot of central midfielders. Obviously, you could put Barry Mackay in there, but I think I've kind of classed him more as a forward, because he'll probably play off the side. So yeah, there's a lot of bodies there. Again, it's when I've been thinking about it, it's a position that it's not a pressing need or priority, but at the same time, do you get a feeling that there's maybe a certain type of profile missing within that?
I suppose someone who's maybe a bit more number 6, a bit of a defensive midfielder, like basically kind of cover for Benny, I suppose. And again, I don't know where else you're going to find that guy, because again, I don't think there's many players like him. But I look around the squad just now, I just think, if he was to get another injury, or you can't play 55 games next season, or whatever it's going to be, there's going to have to be some sort of rotation, and there's going to have to be another option. And I know we've talked about, likes of Macaulay Tate playing in there, or perhaps even Scott Fraser. Obviously, he's back at Charlton now. But I do think that, particularly if Scott Fraser doesn't come back, I think there does need to be an alternative in there, even if it's just to give someone like Beningame a rest. Because I think that otherwise, when you look at it, you've got quite a nice range. There's plenty of kind of playmakery types, kind of number 10 types in there. There's loads in there. Obviously, the likes of Spittle, Danda, George, all the rest of it. I think in Cammy Devlin, you've got one of the best ball-winning midfielders in the league, or maybe even the best. He's in that conversation. You've got some like guys like Aidan Denham, who's like a real workhorse, lots of energy, can get about the park. Tate, who's again, I think he's got a really bright future. I really do rate him highly. And again, he's probably the most replacement with Benny, but even I don't think that's his game. So I think that's probably the one area I'd be looking at, is some sort of cover for Beningame. But I think the rest of the midfield, in terms of the kind of profile of the players that Naismith's got, I think it is quite a good wide selection. And I think, to be honest, the biggest problem will be managing their game time so everyone's kept happy.
So yeah, that's what I find interesting with. So you look at, for example, George Grant with Spittle. When Spittle and Danda coming in, you kind of look at him and just like, where's his game time coming from? Because I would kind of class those three as very similar players. And you're thinking, we know how close he was to leaving the club last summer, and he has been really productive with the data that Tom Irving showed, and when he was analysing each player's year and performance, it was incredible. When I seen it, I was really surprising. So he's been productive, he's been effective, but he's still only started 13 games. So I do wonder if Grant might be one of those to move on if there was opportunity for him. But at the same time, if he stayed, I'm sure Stephen Naismith would be disappointed with that and certainly make use of him. Scott Fraser, another one. I think Naismith quite likes him as that number 6. So, but he's still contracted to Charlton. I'll mention Pollock in a second, but yeah, when looking at the profile, I look at as as a Hearts fan, I would like a bit more physicality in the midfield, maybe a bit more height as well. You look at if you replicate Peter Haring when he was like fully fit and at his best, that would be a real strong addition to the midfield. But yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see how that goes. But I do agree. I think you probably looking for someone to provide depth for cover to do it with Benny again, because it's going to be a big long season with a lot of demanding games.
Yeah.
Graham says, wondering what your thoughts on Finlay Pollock. We've seen Tate and Denham, but not much of Pollock. Do you think he'll potentially leave? At the moment, I don't think so. And again, he is someone the club really, really like, and I don't think they'll give up on him too quickly. He's had a nightmare time off it through injury. He was on crutches towards the end of last season, so he wasn't able to get the game time he probably might have got if he was fit. Obviously, came on against Hibs. I think it was at Tynecastle in the third game between the sides this season just passed. Naismith really likes him. I wouldn't be like I said, Hearts are not going to give up on him easily. You wouldn't be surprised maybe midway through the season or after pre-season that he might maybe go out on loan to get game time, but sign a 1-year deal, because this is his final 12 months and it's a big season for him. That Hearts might go, right, if you go get minutes and we'll just extend your stay, so we're not cutting ties with you, but just allowing a bit more time to develop.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. To be honest, I think the telling thing with Pollock is that when you speak to Naismith about the young players in the squad, he always mentions Tate, Denham, and Pollock in the same breath. Okay, he's not had, obviously Pollock's had as many minutes as the other two, as Graham says, but I think that does kind of show you that, again, it's like he's held in the same sort of consideration as these other two guys who have been getting minutes. So I think you're right. I think there is, I think there's probably a bit of a feeling that he's maybe just not had a fair crack of the whip, and obviously he's come back from injury and he's not had that many opportunities in that sense.
I think it's hard because he's had that injuries. It's limited the opportunity for Naismith to give him those opportunities.
Yeah,
he's never going to come in and start, so he has to come off the bench and make an impact the way that Tate has done before he's got that start. And it's still just building back up his fitness, because he's dropped into the B team, and he does look. Naismith's talked about his physicality and his athleticism. One of the most athletic players at the club, according to Naismith. So it's one of those chicken and egg where he's been out for so long, and you don't want to. You need to give him. There needs to be time before he gets that game time, but then to get up to the swing of things, you do need to give him game time. So yeah, I think it'll be an interesting summer, and see how involved he is during pre-season, because especially there's guys in the B team who are pushing as well, a wee bit younger, like Callum Sandilands as well. So that'd be certainly one to watch. We'll move on to the forwards before we finish up. Now we may as well start with Shankland. At the moment, I think Hearts, again, they're relatively well stocked. I think there's as things stand, I think there's room for, and I'd reckon Hearts are targeting this type of player, but room for one more forward. Ideally, probably someone who's versatile but can play wide and is fast, because I still think Hearts miss pace in the final third.
Yeah, to be honest, when I look at the attack, obviously provided Shankland stays, the one thing you do look at is maybe a pacey winger, because I think part of it we need to recognise the fact that obviously Liam Boyce has had his injury problems over the last season. And the fact is we don't know if he can be relied on to stay fit for the full season. If he gets injured, then you could we potentially be a bit short of options through the middle. Obviously, there's still Boyce could obviously still obviously Tagawa could obviously still come in there. Vargas could obviously move over as well. Then you maybe lose something out wide. And then the other area as well, of course, is Barry Mackay again, who again has had injury problems. Again, maybe can't be relied upon for the full season. So again, I think if you've got two players like that in the forward areas, one who's an out-and-out winger, one who's kind of plays for the middle, I think the versatility of the likes of Vargas means that you're best kind of putting your eggs in one basket and just going for a wide player. And if you are going to go for a wide player, I think that pacey, direct attacker is probably something that's missing, because I think on one side you have got Oda, who can provide that to an extent, but I think there probably needs to be someone who can ideally maybe do that from the other side as well, bring a bit more pace to really hurt teams like on the counter attack, because I think particularly with Europe coming up, where that having something like that in your locker that can be the difference between winning and drawing or drawing and losing in Europe. So yeah, again, it's very much a kind of a secondary concern, I suppose. It was one of these things where I was like, oh, if somebody came available and they're about, great, that'd be nice. But I don't think Naismith should be, waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat going, oh God, what am I going to do? Where's my winger?
Yeah. I think I look at it as in an ideal world, like Shankland stays, one addition's made, but you have Barry Mackay and Liam Boyce stay fit. Then you've got Tagawa and Vargas after a season of adapting to the league, improve further, and then you've got Oda and Forrest contribute more numbers or have a bigger impact. So if you can bring all, so that you're kind of relying
on a lot of fifths in there. There's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of fifths. But if you can bring all them up to kind of the next level, then that's massive, because you're going to get so much more contribution and so much more goals and assists from them, and then less reliance on Shankland. And then you don't need to do as much in the window, but then, because of all those ifs, I can understand why, for example, Stephen says here on Facebook, Shanks will be sold. We need 2 strikers, which I totally get. And he also says if Shanks was sold, Ryan Hardy from Ploughhouse. So there'll be I imagine Hearts will have a list of targets already in mind, because they'll have to act as soon as he's sold, if he is sold, and they'll need to bring in someone who is capable of filling Shankland's very, very big boots. And it's it's one where it's like, do you go all out and invest in one player and hope he just replicates or remarkably even better Shankland, or do you spread it across 2 or 3 options and play the safer ones? And I know you'll use the Moneyball the Moneyball answer of kind of just trying to have a number of players that make up for what Shankland produces. Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, to replicate what Shankland produces, you probably need 3 or 4 players, I'd imagine, in terms of his all-round play and what he contributes on a weekly basis. But yeah, I mean, I'd always be more tempted to spread the money around, hedge your bets, rather than lumping it all on one big win. As you should have learned from your experience at the casino, it doesn't always work.
Yes. Of course, and John here mentions Ollie McBurney. I would be very, 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 very surprised if he ended up at Tynecastle, because he would have to take a very substantial wage cut. This is a guy who got a deal when he was in he got a new deal when he was in the Premier League, and has been bouncing about between the Premier League and Championship. Maybe see it like a few years down the line, where if he comes back up to Scotland. But at this point, I think there'll be other options for him where he will get paid a hell of a lot more money than Hearts can offer.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, I shudder to think what is on at Sheffield United. It's just like, it'll be scary money, and it'll be scary monies after. And frankly, I think if you're going to spend that, if you're going to put somebody on 40 grand a week or whatever at Hearts, you can do better than Ollie McBurney. I'll be honest.
So I mean, if the thing is, for example, the money that probably the money that Shankland wants from the club is less than what
it'll be significantly less.
Ollie McBurney's on. So I think that's one. You just not happening. But yeah. Again, forwards will what happens in the forward area, or the big headline in the forward area, is what happens with Shankland. So it's a case. It's one of those where it's kind of just watch this space, and we just have to kind of keep an eye on it over the next 11 weeks or 12 weeks or whatever. But you could.
It's going to be a long summer.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Hearts managed to maybe offload a couple of players, fringe players, bring in a right back, bring in another forward, and then you'd probably be content with the window shutting right there, right then. But
yeah, you'd probably take it. Yeah, let's be honest. Right now, I think most Hearts fans would take the window just not opening.
To keep
it's absolutely fine. That'll do.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll leave it there. We will be back Not sure when we'll be back because I am away for a few days on holiday, and then James, you're away to the Euros next week, so I don't think we'll be able to fit in another video between then. So we'll see if we can draft in some replacements over the next couple of weeks, especially if certain things happen at Tarts and we need to jump on for an emergency video. But until the next time, I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and once again, thank you everyone for watching, subscribing, supporting, engaging, etc., etc. It is very much appreciated. Do check out the website. There's loads of stuff going up there across the past week and the coming days as well. We bit insight in different areas of the club. But until the next time, thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye bye.